More than 100 Chinese warplanes are spotted around Taiwan, the most ever recorded. KMT presidential candidate Hou Yu-ih woos Taiwanese expat voters in the U.S.
We take an exclusive look inside one of the 7 chip design firms picked to make India a semiconductor giant.
Plus,
how do we protect our oceans? I'm joining a group of divers on Taiwan's eastern coast to see how local communities are preserving their shorelines.
welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Leslie Liao with the latest. Thank you for joining us. Leading off with our top story, Taiwan's defense ministry says over 100 Chinese military planes were spotted operating around the country between Sunday and Monday. 40 of those planes breached the country's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This area is used by the military as a defensive buffer, and it is not the country's airspace. The group included 36 fighter jets along with 2 radar and 2 aerial refueling planes. China recently wrapped up large-scale naval exercises east of Taiwan, which were led by its first domestically built aircraft carrier, the Shandong. For more on why China is stepping up its presence in the region, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to Ben Lewis, a defense analyst based in Washington, D.C., who monitors Chinese military activity around Taiwan.
Taiwan's defense ministry reported 103 Chinese military aircraft in the airspace around Taiwan, and 40 of those breached the Air Defense Identification Zone. What do you make of this increase in activity?
This is the first time we've had a triple-digit total. The previous highest single-day total was 91. That was back in April during the exercises in response to President Tsai's meeting with Speaker McCarthy in Los Angeles. So we've beaten that by 12. The amount in the ADIZ itself, the de facto ADIZ, is not a record. It's not even in the top 5 at this point, but the total number is something we've never seen before. So this is clearly as a result of some kind of large-scale PLA air exercise, whether that's a continuation of the exercises we saw a few days ago in the Western Pacific involving the Shandong carrier. It seems that the PLA has taken this as an opportunity to escalate its activities around Taiwan.
These exercises were unannounced and not too much information has been released from China's side. Should Taiwan and partners in the region be concerned about kind of the spike in military activity?
Well, I think it's definitely something to be concerned about just for its implications for regional security, civilian air traffic, civilian shipping. I think that there are luckily a lot of signs for a potential kind of large-scale attack against Taiwan or the enforcement of a blockade that a snap drill can't hide. But for the implications for regional security and also kind of as a benchmark for China's military development, I think it is something that the United States, Taiwan, and other regional actors should be concerned about.
That was Ben Lewis, a defense analyst who monitors Chinese military activity around Taiwan, speaking with our reporter Jaime Okan. With just months to go before Taiwan's presidential election, Kuomintang candidate Hou Yu-ih is looking for support among expats and officials in the U.S. John Van Triest has more.
Taiwanese expats and Taiwanese Americans came from across New York to see the man they hope will be Taiwan's next president. Hou Yu-ih is in the middle of a week-long U.S. trip, largely focused on meeting officials and policymakers. But over the weekend, he turned his attention to these potential voters. His message was one of de-escalation with China. Beijing claims Taiwan as part of its territory, to take by force if necessary, while Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party says the two are separate countries. After 8 years of DPP government, relations are at a low point. Hou's Kuomintang says it wants to turn things around.
全世界的领导人有一个责任，就是避战，不能引发战争，对不对？就是避战。我们要让我们的孩子们远离战场。
The event was also a chance for local politicians to woo the Taiwanese American vote.
I will commit to you that we will remain partners with Taiwan and the Taiwanese American community.
Hou's now in Washington for meetings with Congress members and more canvassing. He's met with the chair of the American Institute in Taiwan, who's promised unwavering U.S. support for Taiwan. Hou says he hopes Taiwan-U.S. friendship will deepen, using Taiwan's official name.
也期待在美国大力的协助支持底下，我们的友谊
更加深厚，让我们的实力可以确保和平，让中美关系、中华民国跟美国的关系能够深化，让台美之间的友谊不要重断。
Up next on Hou's itinerary is San Francisco and meetings with tech leaders. But with less than 4 months left until Election Day, he's also trying to court every voter he can along the way. Joseph Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The other presidential contenders were also campaigning over the weekend, making appearances at local temples. With the KMT's Hou in the U.S., Ko Wen-je from Taiwan People's Party kept quiet about whether he has plans for a similar trip. Meanwhile, ruling party contender Lai Ching-te focused on his plans for dealing with natural disasters. The country saw 3 typhoons recently with heavy rains triggering flooding in many areas.
我全面彻底检讨咱每一个县市目前防灾标准设一个平台，中央和地方政府安尼来检讨。
Foxconn founder Terry Kuo is getting ready to launch a petition that would allow him to run in January's presidential election. Kuo and his vice presidential pick, Tammy Lai, registered for the petition with the Central Election Commission on Sunday. They need to hand over just under 290,000 signatures in support of their ticket by November 2nd in order to officially enter the race. Lai will also have to renounce her U.S. citizenship before November 24th to become Kuo's official running mate. It usually takes between 3 and 6 months to complete this process.
在我们没有见面之前，我就已经知道了。我们有把握在法令规定日期之前完成一切的合法手续。
Police in the central county of Nantou raided a tea garden suspected of hiring undocumented migrant workers. 2 people were seriously injured as they jumped off a cliff to avoid arrest. Bing Wong has more.
Police raided a tea plantation in central Taiwan suspected of hiring undocumented migrant workers. 3 of the workers were captured on film running from the authorities. 2 of the 3 were severely injured after jumping 60 meters off a cliff. The 3rd worker is still on the run.
那目前该3名移工为何逃逸？是否涉及不法？检方将深入调查厘清案情。
According to government statistics, there are some 700,000 migrant workers in Taiwan. 50,000 are estimated to be undocumented. Many have either left previous employers or have overstayed their work visas. Essential to the economy, migrant workers do jobs in family care, the fishing industry, and in factories. They work for lower salaries and often under harsh conditions. Police commonly raid places believed to be hiring undocumented workers, leaving them with a constant fear of deportation. But many take the risk not just to escape poor treatment by previous employers, but also the high fees they must pay to job brokers.
They have no other choice. Or maybe the transfer period is short and there's no jobs. Also, there are many multiple reasons to force them they don't have other choice but to run away because they still want to have a job, to have a salary, and to feed their families.
Recent demonstrations in Taipei have called attention to the plight of migrant workers, asking for officials to improve the conditions of their employment. Until that's resolved, activists say Taiwan may face a decline in a vital section of its labor force. Alex Chen and Bing Wong for TaiwanPlus.
People across Australia are rallying in support of giving Indigenous communities more recognition in the country's parliament. Rosie Greninger has the details.
The voices of tens of thousands of people echoing across Australia. They're calling for the country to vote yes in an upcoming referendum that would change the country's constitution.
Yes to recognition. Yes to listening. Yes to better outcomes for First Peoples. Yes to a better Australia.
We're being asked to do something both simple and profound. To recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians in our Constitution.
The Indigenous Voice referendum calls for an independent board appointed to advise Parliament on issues directly affecting First Nations people. The change is backed by Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who says it will help create unity and opportunities for more Indigenous Australians.
At the moment, our voices are being lost through the different levels. So by the time it gets to the top, it's either lost or it's lost in translation. So this way, it means that we will have a say in the programs and services that affect us.
But these hopeful scenes are in contrast with recent polling, which shows support for the Yes campaign has slumped. The policy has seen a steady decline since last year. Then it was estimated 63% would vote yes, compared to 37% for no. This comes as the No campaign argues the proposal risks creating legal problems and will divide the nation by race. But Yes campaigners say they're not overly worried.
I wouldn't take much notice of those polls. I agree. Yeah, I think they just, it's all scared tactics, I think.
I'm hoping that people can get away from the shock jock sort of rubbish that's coming out and just look at it as a positive step for our First Nations people.
For the vote to pass, an overall national majority must vote in favour of the change, and a majority in at least 4 of Australia's 6 states. Time is running out for activists to convince the public. Both sides have another month of campaigning before the poll on October 14th. Chris Ma and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, Taiwan is fielding a huge team of athletes for the upcoming Asian Games. We check out some of the country's medal hopefuls.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, like Thailand's capital, please follow us on social media.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. India is spending almost $10 billion to turn itself into a global semiconductor giant. And part of that money will go to 100 chip design firms handpicked by the government. TaiwanPlus takes an exclusive look at one of the 7 companies that's already made the list.
Tucked away on the grounds of India's most prestigious technology school, rows of young engineers craft complex electrical systems. This is Third Eye Tech, one of the country's top chip design startups, and one of 7 firms picked by the government to lead India's push to becoming a semiconductor heavyweight. The company makes these image sensors, custom designed to be used in cars, medical imagery, surveillance systems and security. Half its engineers are still students, and the firm's co-founder, Mukul Sarkar, is a professor here. He says he's worked hard to foster a spirit of innovation.
The motto of my lab is very simple. Research is failure, engineering is success. So we don't want to be successful, we want to be failure. We're happy being failure, as long as we understand our failure.
Since Third Eye Tech was founded in 2018, the company has grown, and its expansive goals are matched by the Indian government, which is spending big to create a new industry, almost from scratch. India's offering almost $10 billion to companies willing to help the country become a semiconductor giant. It wants more than 20 design, manufacturing and fabrication plants built in the next 6 years. Amitesh Kumar Sinha is the government official in charge of leading that push, and he's optimistic about the outcome.
We are quite confident that in 10 years' time, the situation will completely change. Not only we will support Indian ecosystem, we will also support global ecosystem.
But one big obstacle is that India lacks a chip fabrication plant, or fab, on its soil. That's a problem Taiwan, with its chip giants TSMC and UMC, doesn't have. Designers there can finish or tape out a design and get it made within weeks.
The advantage of the Taiwanese ecosystem is that even a computer science professor can tape out a chip for a couple of $1,000s, get silicon back in a month, test it, and give another tape out in 6 months. For us to do that same process, it takes 3 years.
To change that, India's government is working to attract Taiwanese investment, courting some of its biggest firms to build fabs in India. It's looking to position itself as a global manufacturing hub to rival China.
This is the most exciting time for India in terms of what the next 10 years hold. And our company is just one of the beneficiaries of that overall, I would call it a tidal wave.
Despite the challenges, with government support, firms like Third Eye Tech are betting they can ride the wave of India's chip-building boom to take on the world's best and bring home semiconductor success. Leon Shivanpal and Staś Butler in New Delhi for TaiwanPlus.
North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un has wrapped up a 6-day visit to Russia, which saw the two countries working to maintain closer relations. During Kim's stay, he visited several Russian facilities and inspected military hardware. Russia's President Vladimir Putin is looking to deepen ties with North Korea. The country has a large arsenal of artillery shells that could be used to replenish Russia's stock, much of which has been used in its war against Ukraine. The two sides could be looking to complete an arms deal as North Korea works to develop its submarine and satellite capabilities. For more on what the Kim-Putin meeting means, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to Jenny Town, director of 38 North at the Stimson Center.
What is the most significant development to come out of this meeting between Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin?
Well, realistically, Kim Jong-un and Putin didn't have to meet in order for there to be an arms deal. There's obviously a lot more going on here. And I think the most important takeaway from all of this is that, Russia's really signaling that the way that they look at military cooperation with the North Koreans is much different than what it used to be. We're going to start to see, much deeper Russia-North Korea cooperation at a military level as friends who have a common struggle going forward.
And what kind of specific areas do you think we're going to see more cooperation going forward in the future?
Satellites, rockets are definitely on the table, and the Russians seem to be very willing to help in these areas. They're obviously very willing to help in areas that are under sanctions. And so, this idea that we can sanction North Korea more, well, we can, but, without implementation, without China and Russia's cooperation on implementation, they just don't have a lot of teeth, especially against the North Koreans.
What do you think the U.S. and its allies should be doing, or how should they be reacting to the meeting between Russia and North Korea?
We've seen all the signs. We've seen all the high-level political signaling going on. I think it just goes to show that, the region itself is moving in a very dangerous direction, and that we really need to find ways not only to strengthen our own defenses, but ways to re-engage the region in a dialogue, a security dialogue, whether that's preventing nuclear war, lower tensions, trying to build those channels of diplomacy, like what we're seeing now with the recent meeting between Jake Sullivan and Wang Yi. We need more of that going forward, not just with the North Koreans, not just with the Russians, not just with the Chinese, but like in the region as a whole. Otherwise, we're just going to keep barreling towards this block on block competition and really fuel the arms race that's going on in East Asia.
That was Jenny Town, director of 38 North at the Stimson Center, speaking to our reporter Jaime Okan. China and the United States have agreed to continue high-level talks after meeting for 2 days in Malta. As mentioned earlier, China's top diplomat Wang Yi and U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan reportedly discussed Ukraine and Taiwan. China says Wang stressed that Taiwan is the most important red line in their relationship and warned Washington not to support formal Taiwan independence. Washington says it noted the importance of peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. Beijing and Washington are trying to stabilize their rocky relationship and pave the way for a possible meeting between Chinese leader Xi Jinping and U.S. President Joe Biden later this year. A team of ocean divers are working to clear plastic waste and debris from the seas around Taiwan. Laurel Stewart dove in to get a feel for the conditions they're facing.
Freediving and scuba are great holiday activities. But these divers in Geelong are not here for fun. They're cutting off ropes and old nets caught on the coral. One person dives down, works on the knots, and when they're nearly out of breath, they pass the job on to another diver. It's a seamless process. This is part of an initiative by NGO Wild Ocean Taiwan.
It aims to teach people how to protect the oceans and to teach divers that when they're in the sea, there comes the responsibility of trying to protect it. The organization's founder says bleaching is rapidly damaging coral reefs around southern Xiaoliuqiu Island. Bleaching is when coral rejects the algae living in its tissues, turning it white. Bleached coral is not dead, but it's vulnerable to starvation and disease. Some causes of bleaching are warmer ocean temperatures and industrial chemicals seeping into the sea.
For example, if we talk about Xiaoliuqiu, pollution from Kaohsiung city is a huge problem. The amount of tourists in the island every weekend as well.
Is there anything we can do when bleaching occurs? Unfortunately, not. The main thing to do is to try and reduce temperatures, and we all know what we need to do to do that.
The group organises workshops and garbage collection dives. The water on this dive is relatively clear, so they're measuring and taking pictures of the coral. They share the photos on a platform that maps reefs around the country, which researchers can use to track the health of coral and its surrounding ecosystems. Researchers in the group also work to teach other divers how to provide this kind of data.
The most important thing is to come back to the same places to see how these corals that maybe arrived years ago, how they are doing. Have they survived the typhoon? Have they become resilient enough to survive these disturbances that we are seeing an increase in Taiwan?
But even if groups like this continue their cleanup efforts, it's tackling the source of the issue that remains a problem. There's nearly 270,000 tons of plastic floating in the world's oceans. That's about 3/4 the weight of the Empire State Building. So group cleanups may seem to have little effect. But for divers like Si Na-yi-rang, their hobby has become a springboard for environmental activism. She's known as the ocean janitor. For her, reducing ocean pollution is about changing individual habits.
When you buy something, maybe think a little more about it. Like it takes, well, plastic never go away. It just degrade, and it became microplastic, noodles, and gradually kill us all.
Beach cleanup events are increasingly popular around the country, but they only tackle garbage washed ashore, not bigger items like this net found on the ocean floor. Salome Galicia Chen researches phytoplankton, microscopic organisms that act like plants in the oceans. She says it's cheaper for fishers to use single-use nets that they discard into the sea. Currents catch the nets, which can trap marine animals like fish, dolphins or sharks.
It can be stuck on the coral, and the corals get many algae on the net, and then the coral just stops functioning, so it dies.
Galicia Chen and her wife also run a dive shop. Free diving, scuba and other water sports are becoming more popular in Taiwan. But it's difficult to strike a balance between recreational tourism and protecting the environment. But groups like Wild Ocean bring like-minded people together to help them understand that playing in the sea also comes with responsibility. Devon Tsai and Laurel Stewart in Keelung, Taiwan for TaiwanPlus.
The Asian Games will kick off this Saturday. It's the largest international sporting event after the Olympics, and Taiwan's athletes are gearing up for the competition. 521 Taiwanese athletes are preparing to head to Hangzhou in China to compete in the 2023 Asian Games. President Tsai Ing-wen handed off the team flag to the country's competitors in Kaohsiung over the weekend. They have big expectations to live up to. At the last Asian Games in 2018, Taiwan had a record-breaking run.
上一届的亚运，我们获得了17金、19银以及31铜，写下台湾近20年来最好的成绩。
Hopes are high that the athletes can do even better this year, with gold medalists like inline skater Yang Hezhen on the roster. Yang is returning after recovering from an injury she sustained at a competition in Colombia in 2021. A Mexican skater pushed her in the rink, causing her to crash and break her left wrist. Yang also injured her spine in the race, causing her to temporarily lose feeling in her left side. She says that winning at the Asian Games has been a dream of hers and that she plans to retire after competing in Hangzhou.
其实我们感谢溜冰带来的一切，就是我感觉啊，可以跟同年龄的同学或是朋友，其实经历的都比较不一样，然后也可以去看看外面的视野。
There are also high hopes that Taiwanese weightlifters will bring home a few golds. Luo Yingyuan recently won 2 golds at the World Weightlifting Championships, breaking national records, ones she'd previously set herself.
我想要前3名啊，一定要前3名，不，前2名。
Taiwan's athletes will leave for Hangzhou later this week. The team has been given an additional $9,000 grant to help cover their expenses. But while cash handouts are always welcome, what Team Taiwan would really like is to come home with heaps of gold. Taiwan has advanced to the Women's Baseball World Cup's finals. The team finished second in the competition's group stage behind Japan. They clinched their spot after beating France 15-5 on Sunday. Taiwan held a 4-win, 1-loss record at the competition, losing only to first-place Japan. The team will head to Canada in 2024 and compete against 5 other countries for the gold medal. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally today, we leave you with images of Oktoberfest, Germany's largest beer festival. I'm Leslie Liao. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.